Continuing with the series, bad role models in the Bible that people think are good. Today we're talking about Abraham. Yes, Father Abraham, the progenitor of the three of the major religions in the world today. Abraham is often looked upon as a father, as a good person. But if you really break down the characteristics and the things that Abraham did, you realize Abraham is a horrible role model. So let's go through a few of those things about Abraham that demonstrates how horrible Abraham really was, if he ever existed in the first place. So the first thing we have to start with Abraham is that Abraham, out of all the people that were walking around the city of Ur, Abraham decided that the person that he wanted to marry and have sex with would be his half-sister. That's right. Abraham's wife, Sarah, was his half-sister. So instead of getting someone else within his tribe who was not a biological relative, Abraham decided that he wanted to have the pum-pum of his half-sister. So Abraham loved him some incest, huh? So that's number one. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the fact that Abraham pimped out his wife in order to become wealthy. You don't believe me? Go read your Bible. On two occasions, the first time it happened, Abraham was going into Egypt because there was a drought and a famine. Upon getting to Egypt, old punk Abraham was afraid for his own life, so he told Sarah, do not tell them that you are my wife, but to tell them that you are my sister, because you are so beautiful that they may want your pum-pum and they may kill me. Not concerned about her, just himself. So when the Pharaoh does this, takes her, the Pharaoh, thinking that she's just a sister, thought it was fine, takes her, get that pum-pum, and then a curse is bestowed upon Pharaoh. Doesn't mention what Pharaoh it is. Now, once the Pharaoh realized that it was Sarah, and that was his wife, Pharaoh gives back Sarah and gives a whole bunch of slaves, and it gives a whole bunch of gold and silver and a bunch of animals, and Abraham became a wealthy man. The next time you had Amalek. Abraham says, we did it once. Let's see if we can do it twice. So at this point, Abraham does the same thing. Tell them you're my sister. Don't tell them you're my wife. Amalek gets her, but he doesn't get that pum-pum. Realizes in a dream that the curse that has befallen his people was because of Sarah. So then, what do he do? Return her back to Abraham. Gives her some slaves. Give a whole bunch of silver and gold. Give a whole bunch of animals. So Abraham doubles his wealth again by pimping his wife. You really want to pimp to be someone that you idolize? Don't model yourself after that one. Then another instance, Abraham's treatment of slaves. So Abraham was promised that he would have a child. Sarah was barren. Sarah gets tired of waiting. So she tells Abraham, go sleep with my slave, Hagar. He sleeps with Hagar, so he just does whatever his wife tells him to do. He's not a leader. He's not the head of his household. His wife said, do it, get that pum-pum. He said, it's got that nice chocolate. Let me get that pum-pum. They have a child. They have a child. Sarah then becomes jealous of Hagar and his child Ishmael. So she tells Abraham, kick that woman out. And Abraham does that. Give her some bags of water and a little bit of food and kick her out into the desert. So her and his child can go out there and die. Of course, this guy tells her, go back and be a good servant to your master. Go back and be a slave. She comes back. Sarah finally gets pregnant. Have Isaac. Cool. Isaac, then Ishmael decides that he's going to mock Isaac in some form or fashion. We have no idea what happened. Sarah gets pissed off again not because of the mocking, but because she doesn't want Ishmael to gain any inheritance because he's the oldest son. So, kick this woman out again into the desert. And like a punk, he kicks her out into the desert because he's not the leader of his household. He's not a good male role model. That's who you want to follow? That's your father, Abraham? Then, you think that'd be enough. But then, let's think about the issue with Sodom and Gomorrah. Now you wonder, how does Abraham play as a bad role model for Sodom and Gomorrah? It's because Abraham is a sexist. When you think about that story, Abraham, God and two angels and Abraham are standing over the hilltop looking over Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham tries to barter. People say, oh, it's a good thing. Abraham tried to work with God, tried to convince God, tried to barter down. 50 people, 20 people, 10 people. But what he really meant was 10 men, 50 men, 50, 20 men, 10 men. He had absolutely zero concern for the women and children within Sodom and Gomorrah. Because if you think about it, in the story, it is only the men who comes to Lot's house and they want to sodomize these angelic, so-called angelic beings, for not because they were just homosexuals. That's not the reason. Many people think that's the reason, but that's not the reason. That's how it's taught, especially in evangelical churches. But the reason was because when you entered a new city, there were certain protocols that you were supposed to follow. Go to the leaders of that city, introduce yourself to those leaders, pay homage to those leaders. These people didn't do that. The same thing in Judges 19. He didn't do that. So therefore, the men came to show dominance over that person for disrespecting their city. But Abraham, when sending the challenge to finding 50 or 10 good men, good people, he only meant men. You cannot tell me that in any town you can't find 10 women, because the women weren't trying to sodomize nobody. You can't tell me that there weren't 10-year-olds and 5-year-olds and 8 months old and newborns that were in that city and you couldn't number them to 10. Abraham never considered the value of the life of the women and the children who were in that city, who had absolutely nothing to do with it. So in arguing for the non-destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham was only focused on the men and didn't give two shits about the women and the children in that city, and used that as a mechanism to be able to save those people from their destruction. It's almost as if this God, or the writers of this book, wanted Sodom and Gomorrah to be destroyed in one, no matter what. So they just excluded men and women and children. And I understand, in those days, women and children were nothing more than property. So the value that they had was the same value of a damn cow, the same value of a chicken, the same value as a dove. No other value than animal value. So when you think about Abraham, he was a sexist. He was a slave owner. He pimped his wife. He was a punk towards his wife and sent the woman and his only child out to death. He practiced incest with marrying his half sister, and he was a liar. Oh, and one more thing. Abraham is of the cult mentality. This God said, here's your son, the one I've given you the promise. Go and sacrifice this child. And without thought or care for Isaac's life, Abraham was willing to sacrifice his child. It doesn't matter if it was a test. It doesn't matter if this God had a ram in the bush that preachers love to talk about. The fact of the matter is, this man was willing to go and sacrifice his child for the belief in a God that no one can prove actually exists. But Abraham was willing to do this. This is why you have people who willingly say that if they believe that God told them to kill their wife and kill their children, that these people will literally go out and kill their wives and kill their children. This is a sick behavior. So tell me what you guys think, and subscribe to the channel. These are not good role models. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.